Hey guys, welcome back. In today's episode, I'm answering questions that you guys submitted online about what would you ask if you could ask a girl Theo major anything. Hey guys, welcome back. So glad that you're back. I'm glad to be back here on a Thursday at noon. And today I'm just going to be answering some questions that people submitted to me about what it's like to be a girl Theo major, questions that they have and they wanted answered. And the primary one that we're going to talk about today is how gender inclusive is the theology department today, and as far as like the theology track. But first I want to just update you about my life. So as many of you know, it's my last semester, and so during the semester we go through a lot of hiring processes. So we get interviewed by a bunch of different conferences, and then the conferences pick whichever Theo major that they want for their conference. And so a lot of us try to get ahead of the game. It's really good to be able to send your resume out to different conferences and see what they reply. And so I've sent my resume out to 2 different conferences and haven't got much of a response yet. So just keep praying, and I'm going to keep praying and know that God will provide in the place that He wants for me to go. But interviews are coming up in about 2 weeks, so just solicit your prayers for those as well. It's exciting to see. I might vlog a little extra during that week just to kind of give you a little bit of a piece of what it's like. It's been exciting. I did hear back from one conference. They said they were looking forward to coming and interviewing, but that was about it. Gender inclusivity in the theology department. So the first thing I want to talk about is the textbooks. So a lot of the textbooks that we use for ministry aren't exactly textbooks. They're usually books on ministry, books on pastoring, books on church growth, those kind of things, books on Greek and Hebrew. And as far as the gender inclusivity, I think that's the one major place where we have gender inclusivity issues, is a lot of the books that we're using, primarily the ones that are more Adventist specific, are very gender exclusive. No, I won't say very. Very is a strong word. Some of them can be gender exclusive. Some of the books that we do read that are more evangelical in nature, they do tend to be more gender inclusive. They use sometimes female pronouns when they're talking about pastoring. Sometimes they use male. Sometimes they'll be really gender neutral. It just depends on the writer and the background, and also how old the book is. That has something to do with it as well. A lot of the Adventist books on ministry and church growth and a lot of that we're reading are early 2000s, late 90s. So there's not really a lot of cutting edge Adventist books on ministry that we're reading. And I think that also kind of adds to the fact that they're not gender inclusive, because at that time in the church there weren't that many, and it wasn't something most of the pastors, a good majority still are, but especially at those times a majority of the pastors were male, and so it just fit, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. And in fact, when I was writing a paper this week on what's the biblical role of a minister, I realized that when I was referring to a pastor, I was referring to a pastor as he and him, and those masculine pronouns, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But I challenged myself in that paper as well, if everyone's clamoring for the pastor, whatever, to be gender inclusive, I should try it in my paper. So it's just a 1-page paper, and I cannot tell you how many times I sat there and had to redo a section, because it was as the shepherd, he, as the evangelist, he, or his flock, or whatever like that. So in response to the question on textbooks, the ones that are written by the professors that are kind of new, updated year by year, those are typically really gender inclusive. But the ones that are older books, primarily religion specific books, are a little typically more gender exclusive. And the second section to that question is how are the professors and the students in relation to gender and inclusivity. And I would say, like, at the professor level, no matter what they personally believe, no matter what they personally are convicted on, all of them, all the professors, at least in my school, are really supportive. They're really, anytime that I had a question or I needed anything, all of them were more than willing to help, more than willing to support me in my ministry and in my calling. And I never found a spot, and there was never a time when I thought to myself, wow, I don't feel really welcome, or I don't feel like there was open arms, or I just feel in the classroom setting, as far as the professors go. And sometimes, you know, it's so much easier to just think of a pastor as a he, and the pastor as a masculine pronoun or whatever. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I don't find a major issue with that. But in the gender inclusivity realm, sometimes they do trip up, and sometimes, you know, like the pastor. It's a difficult transition that our church is going through right now, and I think in the theology schools it definitely reflects that transition. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Another section of gender inclusivity is that I think is really important to talk about is the classmates, people that I'm in class with. And I pretty much can say the same things about them that I can say about the professors. They're really, like I've talked about before in my videos, there's the bro-ship. A lot of the younger ones and I, we're good friends, and even some of the older ones, there's this general air of acceptance, and not just acceptance in a, well, I can't do anything about it kind of way, but an acceptance in an encouraging sort of way of, hey, we recognize your call and we're so glad you're here. And I think that it's really a blessing for me to be able to be in an environment. I know that there are some young female pastors or female theology students that aren't in an environment where they feel safe, where they feel welcome, where they feel encouraged, and that's really hard. But I think it's really important that people recognize that this is a gender inclusive role now within our schools, and that we don't have to be gender exclusive. So to answer the question in a couple sentences, I would say yes, the theology schools, the religion departments are fairly gender inclusive. Does that mean that we have an equal ratio of guys and girls? No. But there's one area I really want to talk about too, is the gender inclusiveness of the things outside of the classroom, outside of the school, the externships, the evangelistic preaching where we have to go out and preach a series. I've personally had very good experiences with all of that. You know, of course, have your person every now and then, your one or two people are like, oh no, we don't want this or whatever, but you know, each person's entitled to their own beliefs. And for me, that's kind of like on this issue, it's kind of like my approach. You know, I'm here to do ministry. You know, there's still a long way to go though when it comes to gender inclusivity in the church, in the realm of pastoral ministry. Definitely, it's hard because a female pastor, like, where do you fit her? Where do you fit her husband? Like we've talked about in the interview with Liz a few weeks ago. What happens to a female pastor's husband? Like, there's not. It's it's uncharted waters for the church. So when we say that something's not gender inclusive, I don't think that that's necessarily something we should bash or hit hard at. It's on a journey, and I think that journeys take time. And really, I think that's kind of what we should apply to our own spiritual lives, is that each person's in their journey, and journeys take time. God takes time to work on a heart, to bring the heart to where it should be. And for me, that's something that God's really impressed me as a theology major, is I'm on my journey. And, you know, it's easy to look around at the rest and be like, wow, you know, some people have told me, wow, seeing all the theo majors scares me for the future of the church. And while I suppose there are, to some degree, very real concerns, I'm not afraid. Because each person is on their spiritual journey with Christ, with God. And I know that He will lead them to the place where they need to be, at the point that they need to be at. It's the appointed time. God will bring them to the place that they should be in their journey. And for me, that's one of the most important things, is to be able to say, the church is on this journey. Not to gender inclusivity, because that as an end goal is a really poor end goal. But it's a journey to focus on ministry, to focus on evangelism, to focus on Christ and His mission of the gospel to the world, and bringing them back to that knowledge of the good and loving character of the Father. And to me, that is the journey that the church is journeying towards the kingdom, towards bringing people to that kingdom. And I think that's the most important thing. And for me, as a girl theo major, that's one of the things that I love most about being a girl theology major. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was a blessing, and just hope that you'll continue to be blessed by this. If you want to see more of this, click subscribe. There'll be more episodes to come. If you have a comment or a question that you want me to answer, then just be sure to comment that down below, and I'll be sure to answer that in an upcoming vlog. So thanks so much. Hope you were blessed, and hope to see you again next Thursday.